Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we re-diving into the epic story of an empire that rose from a tiny speck on the map to rule over 3 continents for over 600 years. Imagine a small Turkish principality, barely holding its own on the fringes of the mighty Byzantine Empire. In the late 1200s, no one could have predicted that this underdog, led by a visionary named Osman I, would forge one of the most powerful and influential empires in world history. This is the incredible saga of the Ottoman Empire, a tale of ambition, conquest, brilliant leaders, and a legacy that continues to shape our world. Our story kicks off in 1299. In the rugged lands of northwestern Anatolia, a daring leader named Osman I declared his small state's independence. Life was tough. Osman was surrounded by rival Turkish warlords on one side and the formidable Byzantine Empire on the other. Survival was a daily struggle, and the odds were stacked against him. But Osman wasn't just a warrior. He was a master strategist. He knew he couldn't win through brute force alone. So, he made clever alliances, arranged strategic marriages to secure loyalty, and led bold raids that chipped away at Byzantine territory, bit by bit. He united scattered tribes under his banner, giving them a shared purpose and a vision of a future far grander than their humble beginnings. This unwavering vision inspired fierce loyalty, turning a collection of tribes into a unified force. When Osman's son, Orhan, took the reins, he didn't just continue his father's work, he accelerated it. In 1326, Orhan achieved a massive victory by capturing the strategic city of Bursa. This wasn't just another conquest. Bursa became the very first capital of the burgeoning Ottoman state. It was a game changer. With Bursa as a secure base, the Ottomans established a formal government, a thriving center for trade, and a military headquarters. It was here that one of the empire's most famous and controversial institutions was born, the Janissaries. These elite soldiers were created through a system called devshirme, where young boys from conquered Christian territories were taken, converted to Islam, and trained to become the Sultan's personal, fiercely loyal fighting force. This disciplined army would become the backbone of Ottoman military might for centuries, a terrifyingly effective tool that helped pave the way for an empire. With a new capital and a new army, the Ottomans were no longer just a regional nuisance. They were a rising power. Orhan's reign saw the empire expand across Anatolia and, for the first time, leap across the water into Europe. In 1354, a stroke of luck, an earthquake that destroyed the walls of Gallipoli, gave the Ottomans their first permanent foothold on the European continent. This was a pivotal moment. From Gallipoli, the Ottomans began their relentless push into the Balkans. They weren't just raiding anymore, they were conquering and settling. Cities like Adrianople fell, which soon became their new European capital, renamed Edirne. This strategic move placed them squarely at the doorstep of the Byzantine Empire's heartland and signaled their ambition to the rest of Europe. The message was clear. The Ottomans were here to stay. The next century was a whirlwind of expansion. Sultan Murad I, Orhan's successor, continued the push into the Balkans, famously defeating a coalition of Balkan forces at the legendary Battle of Kosovo in 1389. Though Murad himself died in the battle, the victory solidified Ottoman control over much of the region. His son, Bayezid I, earned the nickname the Thunderbolt for the incredible speed of his military campaigns. He besieged the great city of Constantinople and seemed on the verge of toppling the Byzantine Empire once and for all. But just as Ottoman power seemed unstoppable, disaster struck from the east. A new formidable conqueror appeared on the scene, Timur, also known as Tamerlane. In 1402, at the Battle of Ankara, Timur's massive army crushed the Ottomans, and Bayezid himself was captured. The empire, which had seemed so invincible, was suddenly shattered and plunged into a devastating civil war as Bayezid's sons fought each other for the throne. It looked like the end of the Ottoman story. But from the ashes of this defeat, the empire would rise again, stronger than ever. After a decade of brutal civil war, Mehmed I emerged as the sole ruler. He is often called the second founder of the Ottoman Empire, and for good reason. He painstakingly stitched the fractured empire back together, restoring central authority and stabilizing the frontiers. His son, Murad II, continued this work of consolidation, fighting off European crusades and internal rebellions. This period of recovery set the stage for one of the most famous moments in world history. In 1451, a young, brilliant, and fiercely ambitious sultan ascended the throne, Mehmed II. He had one singular obsession that had eluded his ancestors: the conquest of Constantinople, the 1,000-year-old capital of the Byzantine Empire, the city they called the Red Apple. In the spring of 1453, Mehmed II laid siege to Constantinople with a massive army and an incredible new weapon, giant cannons that could blast through the city's legendary walls. For 53 days, the defenders held out bravely, but the odds were insurmountable. On May 29, 1453, Ottoman forces breached the walls and the city fell. This was a world-changing event. The Byzantine Empire was no more, and Constantinople was reborn as Istanbul, the new capital of the Ottoman Empire. Mehmed, now known as the Conqueror, had achieved the impossible dream. This victory not only cemented his legendary status, but also transformed the Ottoman state into a true global empire, controlling the vital trade routes between Europe and Asia. The fall of Constantinople sent shockwaves across the Christian world and marked, for many historians, the true end of the Middle Ages. The century that followed the conquest of Istanbul is known as the Golden Age of the Ottoman Empire, and it was dominated by two legendary rulers. First came Selim I, nicknamed the Grim for his ruthless ambition. In a whirlwind reign of just 8 years, he dramatically expanded the empire, conquering the Mamluk Sultanate in Egypt and Syria in 1517. This victory was monumental. It gave the Ottomans control over the holy cities of Mecca and Medina, making the Ottoman Sultan the new caliph, the leader of the Sunni Muslim world. This added immense religious authority to their already vast political and military power. The empire now stretched from the Balkans deep into the Middle East and across North Africa. Then came Selim's son, Suleiman I, known in the West as the Magnificent, and in the East as the Lawgiver. His 46-year reign from 1520 to 1566 represents the absolute peak of Ottoman power and cultural brilliance. On the battlefield, Suleiman was a genius. His armies conquered Belgrade, Rhodes, and much of Hungary, even laying siege to Vienna in 1529, striking fear into the heart of Europe. His navy, under the command of the legendary Admiral Barbarossa, dominated the Mediterranean Sea. But Suleiman was more than just a conqueror. He was a great patron of the arts and architecture. He commissioned the brilliant architect Mimar Sinan to build magnificent mosques, bridges, and palaces that still stand today, including the stunning Süleymaniye Mosque in Istanbul. He also reformed the legal system, creating a comprehensive code of laws that earned him his title, the Lawgiver. Under Suleiman, the Ottoman Empire was a true superpower, wealthy, sophisticated, and feared by all. But no empire lasts forever. Even at the height of Suleiman's glory, the seeds of decline were being sown. The empire had become too vast to govern effectively. Corruption began to creep into the administration, and the once mighty Janissary Corps started to interfere in politics, becoming a source of instability rather than strength. After Suleiman, a series of less capable sultans came to the throne. The era of relentless expansion slowed and then stopped. In 1571, a European coalition decisively defeated the Ottoman navy at the Battle of Lepanto, shattering its aura of invincibility at sea. On land, long and costly wars against Persia and the Habsburgs in Austria drained the treasury. The empire was also falling behind Europe in military technology and scientific innovation. The Industrial Revolution that was transforming Europe largely passed the Ottomans by, leaving them at a significant disadvantage. Throughout the 17th and 18th centuries, the empire faced what historians call a long stagnation. They suffered a series of major military defeats, most notably the failed Second Siege of Vienna in 1683, which marked the beginning of a long retreat from Europe. Territory was lost in the Balkans to Austria and the rising power of Russia. Internally, the empire was plagued by weak leadership, palace intrigue, and economic troubles. There were attempts at reform, like the Tulip period in the early 18th century, which saw a flourishing of art and a brief opening to Western culture. But these efforts were often superficial and short-lived. The once unstoppable force was now seen by European powers as the sick man of Europe, an empire in terminal decline, whose territories were ripe for the picking. In the 19th century, the Ottoman leadership recognized that drastic change was needed to survive. This kicked off a period of intense reform known as the Tanzimat. The government tried to modernize the army, the bureaucracy, and the legal system along Western lines. They introduced new technologies like the telegraph and railways and established secular schools. However, these reforms were often fiercely resisted by conservatives. At the same time, the powerful wave of nationalism sweeping across Europe began to infect the empire's diverse ethnic and religious groups. Greeks, Serbs, Bulgarians, and others rose up in rebellion, seeking independence. Russia, Britain, and France often intervened, supporting these nationalist movements to further their own imperial ambitions and weaken their old rival. The empire was crumbling from both within and without. The final chapter of the Ottoman Empire was written in the fires of World War I. The government, now controlled by a group of ardent nationalists known as the Young Turks, made the fateful decision to join the Central Powers alongside Germany and Austria-Hungary. This proved to be a catastrophic mistake. The empire fought on multiple fronts, in the Caucasus against Russia, in Mesopotamia against the British, and at Gallipoli, where they won a famous but costly victory against the Allies. But the war stretched its resources to the breaking point. After 4 years of brutal conflict, the Ottoman Empire was defeated. The victorious Allies occupied Istanbul and carved up the empire's territories. In 1922, the last Ottoman Sultan was forced into exile. A year later, a Turkish nationalist hero named Mustafa Kemal Ataturk formally abolished the Sultanate and declared the founding of a new, modern secular nation, the Republic of Turkey. After more than 600 years, the mighty Ottoman Empire was no more. From a tiny tribe to a world-spanning empire, the Ottoman legacy is immense. It shaped the history of the Middle East, North Africa, and Southeastern Europe for centuries. Its art, architecture, and cuisine left an indelible mark on the cultures it ruled. It served as a bridge between East and West, and its rise and fall offer timeless lessons about power, ambition, innovation, and the inevitable cycle of history. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through one of history's greatest empires. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next historical deep dive. We'll see you in the next one.